Much of Jack White's material, solo material, has always been very mediocre to me. Never really felt like it had that much flavour to it. Jack White is an incredibly talented musician, a very talented guitarist. Can create music that sounds very different despite the fact that it's got a simplistic sound to it. But generally, every album that I've come across of his in the solo realm of his career has just been so average. Like, there's a lack of interesting ideas, the songwriting, the lyrics are pretty bland. The music itself usually tends to play it safe in a very bluesy rock sort of formula that we've heard a lot before, and even in the White Stripes' music we heard it too, but there was something about their sound that was really cool and just fun at times and rocky. And I don't know, the White Stripes just have always got a pass for me in rock music, because even though they have their clear influences, they managed to do it in a way that was very different from a lot of other rock bands out there. And one thing people used to say was Meg as a drummer was very average, very basic. You know, she didn't have a very much like ever technical talent for drumming, and yet without her, Jack White on his own has created some of the most boring rock music of like the decade. So maybe she was actually a key element to making the Jack White musical adventure something unique. I don't know, it's just something I've always seen, and here we are with this new Jack White album, and he has gone a little bit off the rails with his ideas this time. We're hitting some electronic sounds, we're hitting some funky elements too. We still got the standard Jack White vocal that we'd always come to expect, but it's very muffled. He's still singing in like a sort of country bluesy twang over these instrumentals that aren't made for that style. And the instrumentals that we have here are a complete mess. Honestly, I was not expecting this. I almost just ignored this album because I thought it's just going to be another Jack White album that I'm not going to really enjoy, aside from maybe one or two songs. But there's like nothing on here that I can take away. I've seen some people defend this album, and they've jumped to the defense of Jack White because of how talented he is as a musician, in saying that he's trying something different, he's taking a risk. Give him a pass. Let him have this one. You know, he's doing something different to everyone else. So let's not hate on it because of that. And to that I say, no, that's dumb. Like, you don't get a pass just because you made something different. All right, like sometimes you can make some terrible music when you take a risk. We all know that. Some of the greatest musicians of all time have took risks and created music that even them themselves have said like, yeah, that was just an album that I wanted to try out, and I don't really think it's very good anymore, but I'm still happy that I tried to do it. And you should always push your artistic boundaries. But again, just because you are doesn't mean we can defend the music. I mean, have you heard this album? There are so many weird sounds across the whole thing that are just thrown together. Like, it was painful. And there's just like no passion in Jack White's delivery as well. Like if there was like this sort of like self-conscious feel to it, sort of like on Yeezus, where like Kanye's kind of going over the top, sort of fitting the instrumentals. Even though I don't like Yeezus, I can see that Kanye is self-aware and knows that what he's doing is a little weird, so he plays up to that. Whereas Jack White here is just like sort of just being like placed in a place where he knows he doesn't fit, but he's just gonna go along with it anyway. Everything he does here doesn't sell. He sounds uncomfortable, he sounds rigid, the instrumentals are just out of his element, completely out of his element. Like, surely he must have listened back to these songs and thought, none of this works. Like, this is like at the start of the decade when like country bands and artists like Luke Bryan and Florida Georgia Line started trying to incorporate hip-hop elements into country, and it's been widely regarded as one of the worst things to happen to music this decade. And here we have Jack White trying to implement sounds that are just thrown together that I think, honestly, as years go by, we're going to look at this album and consider it one of the worst of the year it came out, because this is really bad. Maybe the opening track and over and over and over is okay, There's just something about the way they're recorded that just doesn't sit well with me. I don't know what it is. I just think like there's some kind of like lo-fi element in this album that just makes the album hard to hear. Like there are some tracks that I have to turn up the volume really high to actually pay attention to what's going on, and then I realize it's actually quite shit, so then I turn the volume down because I don't want to hear it. I'm just conflicted the whole time in this album. I'm just trying to work out what he's going for and what sounds he's trying to throw in, and yet every now and then something comes up and I'm just a bit like, this isn't working, but I want to give it a chance because it's not something you usually hear. But then I try and give it a chance, and the more I give it a chance, the worse it gets. I really don't know what else to say about this album. This is one of the strangest musical experiences I've had in a while. And I kind of commend Jack White because it's come from a very popular musician. It's not like this is an underground Bandcamp album that you've discovered that's like intentionally weird. Just to kind of scare people away, but this album to me is like weird for the sake of being weird. You know, there are experimental moments here, but it doesn't amount to anything. It's just everything about it. The recording quality, the fact that he sounds like he's far away from the music that's being played. Like, you can tell none of this was live. Like, I appreciate music when you know that everything's going on in the moment, and that's such a good feeling, and it's such a rarity to find actually these days, I think. But this album, like, just goes against all of that and just has all of these elements that were thrown in after things were mixed together just for, like, what? For what? For what? Electronic music has been very innovative in this decade, but when artists just throw in these electronic elements just to kind of try something different to sort of fit with the times, then you can clearly see that it's just not something that's going to work in the long run, and I hope more musicians don't do this. So many rock bands aren't even rock bands anymore, and to see Jack White go from what he has done to this is so disappointing, man. I hope he goes against this sound completely with future material. Even though I've not really liked his previous stuff, this is just not working either. It's already March and I feel like I could compile my worst albums of the year list already. I couldn't even do one last year because I didn't hear enough albums that I thought were that terrible. But there's been like 5 or 6 already, and it's March. Yeah, this is an E. This is really bad. It's not quite an F though, because I feel like the albums I've given Fs to are worse than this. But this is still terrible. Like, holy shit, this is terrible. Let me know your thoughts on this Jack White album. If you like it, please tell me what I'm missing, because I think Jack White fans might defend this, and I don't really know how or why. But let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel for more reviews, podcasts, interviews, everything like that, music related, and have a good day.